Hey, welcome back to my Permanently Filipino playlist where I basically talk about everything my husband and I are doing as retirees, moving from the United States to become permanent residents in the Philippines. Today's video is going to focus on converting our US driver's license to a Philippines driver's license. And to be honest with you, we did zero research. We didn't even consider converting our US driver's license to a Philippine driver's license until we were actually here in the Philippines. And I think the reason why we didn't do any research is because we didn't plan on buying a car. We didn't plan on driving. If you've watched anything in regards to Manila traffic, you wouldn't want to drive either. We're not that adventurous when it comes to driving. And we're going to trust our the drive with the experts, the people who know the streets, the city driving. I mean, I've driven in Chicago before, hated it. So I figured if I hated driving in Chicago, I'm really going to hate driving in Manila. And I feel much safer using public transportation while in the Philippines, to be honest. And I also think it's better for the environment, but that's just my personal take on it. And it's not as if I'm not going to eventually get a car, but I'm not going to be in Manila. That is for sure. So this video, as I said, is going to focus on converting our United States driver's license to a Philippine driver's license. And to be honest with you, for us, it took multiple months. For you, it should only take you 1 to 3 hours. 1 to 3 hours, to be honest with you. My story is just a multiple month story, okay? But every step that I share with you is something that I think is of value because you're still going to have to go through the steps. We just took a longer time throughout the whole process than what I would think most people would experience. But I still think this video would be helpful for people to hear what is it like. Whenever I went and did officially start researching about converting my driver's license, I did find very detailed information online from LTO, the Land Transportation Office of the Philippines. So I felt I understood the step-by-step process, but I really couldn't find any YouTube videos that would explain it, I guess, the way I'm explaining it. So I always find it helpful to hear somebody's experience. So this is basically our experience of what we did. So when we started researching about converting our driver's license, one of the things we realized that we did not have to do in the United States, never had to do in the United States, was get a medical clearance. As a foreigner who's going to convert their US driver's license to a Philippine driver's license, you need a medical clearance. So we thought we could go to any LTO office. And if you've had the experience where you could go to any LTO office, that's great. But for us, we were told, at the time, we were living in Makati, we were told we could not do the conversion at the Makati office. We had to then go to the LTO compound in Quezon City. But we could go to any accredited LTO medical clinic, and that's what we did. So in January, since we were in Makati, we decided to get our medical clearance done there, and we went to the clinic that is right near Landmark, and the Landmark is near Greenbelt Mall. It's second floor. I don't have the exact address, but it's out there somewhere. And I brought my birth certificate, my ACRI card, and my passport. For this visit, I did not need to bring any photocopies, so they did not expect any photocopies from me. I just needed evidence. I also brought my US driver's license, so as much identification as it possibly could. Entering this, it's just one little room, had 3 people in it. One person is getting you to fill out the application. 2 other people were actually going through their specific roles during the medical clearance process. The first person gave me an application to fill out, and then we paid 500 pesos each. I don't remember what was on the form, but it's a basic form to fill out, and then I think that form just kind of follows you throughout. The first thing I remember taking was an eye exam, you know, one for this, then that, and then being able to read. Then they wanted some other basic information like weight, height, eye color, and maybe some other stuff. There wasn't anything really major, super basic. Took about 15 minutes total, and the medical clearance was good for 3 months. So since my husband and I are retired, we are in no rush. We have no plans of buying a car. We have no plans on driving. This is why it took multiple months for us to get anything done. For you, won't take that long. So we actually decided to actually do the conversion like on the last day that our medical clearance was still valid, which is funny to me that we waited until the last day. But anyway, I'm going to start referring to some notes, because then there's some things that I want to make sure that I remember and where to go. Now, I'm going to share 2 parts. The first part, we received our temporary driver's license. The second part will talk about the permanent driver's license. So we have gone through the entire process of what you would need to go through: medical clearance, temporary driver's license, permanent driver's license. In my mind, I think for somebody who's going to for the conversion, you're just going for your permanent driver's license. It'll be done. There's a huge difference in both visits. So first, I'm going to start off, when you actually go there, we took a grab drive, and our first grab driver actually went through the gates into the compound and dropped us off in front of this big sign. And that sign, pay attention to that sign. It gives them, I guess, the LTO's mission statement. That's what I'm going to call it. And when you're inside, you might be given a piece of paper, and it's going to ask you about that sign. So the first time we had a visit, it's like we had no idea what they were talking about. Did you notice they call it something? I'm calling it their mission statement. Did you notice this and this and this? Are we following through with everything that's stated on this huge sign that we didn't even notice? The second time, I made a point of noticing it and realized that's what they were talking about. So FYI, when you go through this process, you might be given a survey. That huge sign that has their mission statement, you really can't miss it. I mean, obviously you can, because we did, but once you know that it's there and they're going to ask you about it, you might want to just look at it. It's just part of their survey. Our second grab driver from our second visit did not drive into the compound, did not go through the gate. Instead, dropped us off in front of the compound, outside of the gate. And that's where you're going to see, it will feel like 50 million people just milling around on the sidewalk. And you're trying to figure out, okay, we can't go through the gate because we don't have a car, so now where do we go as we walk in? Where do we walk in? So next to the gate, there's going to be an opening, and you'll go up some stairs, and then you'll see the security guard. It's still going to be like an open area. You're not going inside a building. You're still going to be relatively outside in a covered area, and you'll walk down this outside hallway, covered area. Maybe that's the best way for me to say it. You're going to walk in this outside covered area. You'll see that big sign eventually, and on the left-hand side, you're going to see the LTO building. It is a compound because there's multiple buildings all over. On the left-hand side of that sign, there were a number of other buildings. I don't know what they were for, but there's a huge building on the right-hand side. Don't even mind left from the right. That is another reason maybe why I'm not driving. On the right-hand side of that sign, you'll see a bunch of other buildings. I don't know what's in those buildings, but on the left-hand side is the big building, LTO building, where you are needing to go. You're still outside. You're gonna feel like you're outside all the time. Bring a fan because it's gonna be hot while you're waiting, depending upon the day. It just happened to be hot when we were there. Welcome to Manila. Legit. And there are guards along the way who will can assist you as you walk your way through. When you first walk in, you're going to see, you walk into a huge room, and on the immediate left, you'll see an altar. So they'll have religious services most likely in this space. There was not one occurring at the time. We went in a weekday, the first time, weekday, like close to lunch, okay? On the right-hand side, you're going to see some windows. We did not go to those windows because we wanted to convert our driver's license. A lot of the activity did not happen there. It happened over on the left-hand side, past all of those chairs, past the altar, and past this ceiling big-ass fan. And I apologize, but that is what they called it. Even the guy that we talked to said, yeah, when we got to that, it said on the box, big-ass fan, and it is huge, but it's not on. If it was on, I think it would make a significant difference in the temperature in that space, even though it is still a covered outdoor space. But that big-ass fan was not being used. They had a bunch of floor fans. But anyway, so go past the chairs. You go all the way to the far left as you can. It's the window before you go into another section where you could go upstairs. And there's guards that can help you. The window is underneath the license section, and you'll talk to the client service officer. And for this area, we brought our medical clearance, my birth certificate, my ACRI card. My husband and I both brought our passports and our U.S. driver's license. I don't think we brought anything else besides that, because at the time, we did not have anything else there. We didn't have anything to prove where we were living at the time. I mean, we were just Airbnb-ing it. We were still living the nomadic life. So at the time, we were living in Parañaque when we went for our first visit to the LTO compound in Quezon City. So we took all of those documents and gave them to the client service officer, who looked them over and made the decision if we're going to move forward or not. Handed us, number one, that survey that I talked about that's going to refer to that big sign out there with their mission statement on it, and then the application form for the conversion. Filled out that form. Because we didn't come with photocopies of some of our forms of identification, you're going to need to bring, if you didn't bring photocopies, you're going to need to go get photocopies. So, and And I need to also mention that if you get your medical clearance done ahead of time, you can avoid a lot of people who are asking you to go to another building first to get a medical clearance, because you could get one there, just say ayoko, and move on if you already have that medical clearance, I'm glad that we didn't have to go to another building or another area. We just could immediately go and take care of business, get the application. However, we needed to get photocopies. So to get photocopies, you leave that building, another huge open space. You leave that building, you go out into the parking lot. Through the parking lot, you'll see some other buildings. You cross the street. When you're looking at, you're veering more towards the right, and you'll see bathrooms. On the right-hand side of the bathrooms, you'll see a door, and that door has a copy machine, like right in it. I think if you go through there, it has a restaurant or an eatery, but our main focus was, number one, getting photocopies. We needed to get photocopies of front and back of our driver's license, my ACRI card. I already brought photocopies of of both of our passports, and I'm trying to think if we needed anything else. And I think that's it. So once we were there, we were cool. And plus, then you knew where the bathrooms were. So once we got our photocopies, we walked back to the license section window, turned in the application, and turned in all of the photocopies. You'll see where all of the seats are, so you're going to that's the waiting area. And then it really was a waiting game until you were called to the different windows of whatever you needed to do. So the first window you're going to need to go to after you turn in your application would be the cashier's window. But you can't just go straight to it to go and pay. Have a seat, take a break, and you have to wait until your name is called. Now, if you've ever watched any Charlie Brown special and you listen to any of the adults talk, especially like the teacher, that's what your name's gonna sound like. So be prepared that you can recognize when your name is being called. So once your name is being called, then you can go to a different window. So once we heard our name called, then we went to the cashier's window first, and that's where you pay 785 pesos. And I can't remember, I think she gave me a receipt as proof that we paid. And then you go and sit down again, because you have to wait until you're called to the next window. And again, it's the whole Charlie Brown hoping that you hear your name. And they call you over. So after paying and then waiting for a bit, we went to the biometrics window. I've mentioned this before in previous videos. So you have to check your information, check the monitor to make sure all of the information is correct. At the time, even though we lived in Parañaque, my ACRI card had a Makati address. This could also explain why we received a temporary driver's license. I'm just guessing. But anyway, so the monitor, digital signature, digital fingerprints, and then, of course, the photo. Photo, no glasses, no teeth, show your ears, okay? And then go back, sit down, take a break, and then wait for the receiving window. Once they call you, you go up to the receiving window, and that's where we received our temporary driver's license. And that was good enough for us. My husband actually laminated his. I didn't. I folded it up, put it into my wallet. It wasn't any big deal. The one thing about laminating a full piece of paper, which you can't, how are you carrying that? I don't know, but My husband just had it laminated, and we used it for documentation for our attempts for the bank, because we wanted to then use that to then get a banking account. So he didn't plan on carrying his. He was just going to use his passport for everything. I carried mine because, in my mind, I felt a driver's license had more clout than an ACRI card, because my ACRI card was a ballot buy-in Visa card, which is voluntary, and it was the red card. All of the cards are different colors. So I'm curious, when I finish the 13G visa process, what color my ACRI card is going to be. Anyway, that's for another story. So we received our temporary driver's license, and we just kind of lived with that for a while. It was no big deal. Nobody really asked for it. I didn't really do anything that required it, but it was nice to have. If we needed to drive a car, we could drive a car. Can we drive a scooter? No. Can we drive a motorcycle? No. We need to go and get another license specifically to allow us to drive a scooter and a motorcycle. And I think even a tuk-tuk, to be honest with you, because we couldn't buy a tuk-tuk, but we can drive a car, which had zero plans to do that. Anyway, May 31st, finally, we were established in Lipa. We were living in a barangay. So we were in a subdivision now. We had landlords, we have a contract, we had all of the things to show that we are now in a semi-permanent space, not an Airbnb, but we were truly indicating we are stationary, not living a nomadic life. I think that's the best way for me to explain it. Because we also received our barangay certificate from the barangay hall, and I had done a video about that. Like within days of receiving a barangay certificate, we took the bus, and I love public transportation in the Philippines. We took actually 2 buses and a Grab. Hold on. Anyway, to Quezon City for our second visit, and this time it was to get a permanent driver's license because we had the barangay certificate. So the second time we went to the LTO compound in Quezon City, we brought our temporary driver's license that we received from the first visit, our barangay certificate. I still bring my birth certificate just in case. At the time, I did not have my passport, but I had my ACRI card because we were working on permanent residency, and the visa agency and Bureau of Immigration still is using my passport, because we were then really in like the midst of working on permanent residency, which we still are, to be honest with you. So we report back to that license section window where we talk to the client service officer, and we turn in the barangay certificate with everything else. And this process was much shorter. The first visit, legit 2 hours. This visit, 1 hour. That was it. So once we turned in everything, she remembered us, number one. And number two, it didn't take as long. We just handed the stuff in and just sat down and waited, because we knew the next thing, cashier's window, another 785 pesos each. Then it was the biometrics, and then it was going to be the receiving window. And at the receiving window, that's when we actually received a paper Philippines driver's, not paper, a plastic Philippines driver's license. The first time received paper, there could be a number of reasons. Number one, it was a temporary. Number two, it's because there was an issue with plastic. So this time I had read that they had plastic again, and it wasn't going to be an issue, so we did receive a plastic card. And I will say it has way more clout than anything else. Like, I don't even show my ACRI card for anything. I show my driver's license, and that is an automatic. Oh, okay. Very helpful. Definitely at some point I'm going to talk about how getting a bank account and everything that we've done, and how we got that bank account, and the value in having a bank account in the Philippines. But that's for another video. I hope this video was helpful to you. I'm so glad you stopped by just to listen, and I look forward to seeing you again. Thanks for hanging out. Bye.